Inigo and Garrick walked out of the room with Inigo closing the door behind him. Inigo, Garrick spoke. Just as the guard says, you are free to roam around the capital for an hour. You have to return here after that time, as you will be given an identification. You're not coming with me? Inigo asked, glancing at him. Garrick shook his head. I am in no mood to walk around the capital. I will just stay here and wait. If you have any questions about the town, you can simply ask the locals. Inigo nodded. Understood, sir. I'll be back shortly. With that, he stepped out onto the main street, and the full scale of the capital finally unfolded before him. Alandra was, in a word, majestic. The streets were immaculately clean, white cobblestone tiles polished smooth from years of use, laid out in perfect, symmetrical grids. There wasn't a hint of garbage anywhere. The air smelled of fresh bread, spices, and a trace of lavender from the flower beds arranged in brass planters along the avenues. He glanced up and was awestruck by the architecture. Towering stone buildings lined the roads, a mix of medieval charm and neoclassical elegance. Ornate columns, wide archways, wrought iron balconies with blooming flowers. Each structure looked like it belonged on a postcard. The roofs were tiled in deep blue or red, contrasting with the pale walls that glowed softly under the morning sun. Alandra didn't feel like a city out of a game. As he wandered further, he came upon a broad plaza lined with silver lamp posts and marble benches. A large fountain stood in the center, water cascading down from a sculpture of an armored angel holding a sword. Dozens of people moved through the square, traders, nobles, and commoners alike. What caught his attention, however, was a particular group that stood out from the rest. They wore matching uniforms, dark blazers over crisp white shirts, adorned with golden trim and house insignias. The girls wore pleated skirts with high socks or elegant dresses, while the boys were neatly dressed in tailored slacks and polished shoes. Each carried a staff or book of some kind. Magic students, he realized. They chatted in pairs or small groups, laughter ringing out now and then. One girl, with long violet hair and striking emerald eyes, adjusted the ribbon at her collar while her friend conjured a tiny flame in her palm. Another was reviewing a floating parchment that scrolled itself as she walked. Inigo's jaw nearly dropped. It was like walking into an anime scene. These people, he murmured to himself. They're attending a magic academy, aren't they? They should be. After all, what's the use of that uniform? He wanted to learn more, but this wasn't the time. There was still more of the city to explore. He turned away and headed deeper into the commercial district. He followed the signs, many of them in ornate script that the system helpfully translated for him, and eventually found what he was looking for. The Adventurers Guild. The building was massive, taller than any other structure on the block, built from dark stone with stained glass windows and a grand set of double doors. The crest above the entrance showed a sword and staff crossed over a golden sun. It wasn't just a building. It was a monument. He pushed the doors open. The moment he stepped inside, the atmosphere shifted completely. The air was thick with the smell of roasted meat, alcohol, sweat, and smoke from oil lamps. A dozen voices overlapped in a low, constant hum. Inside was a large tavern-style space with wooden floors, beams across the ceiling, and long tables filled with armored adventurers, robed mages, and cloaked rogues. Some laughed loudly. Others argued over maps. A few were passed out over their mugs. And to the left, tucked into a large counter with polished brass trim, stood a registration area. 3 receptionists sat behind it, handling paperwork for a growing line of hopeful adventurers. Behind them was a massive corkboard pinned with parchment notices, quests. Inigo walked forward, trying not to gawk too much. A bard played soft music from the corner, while a waitress carried tankards to a table full of mercenaries recounting some monster hunt with exaggerated hand gestures. He made his way to the counter and waited his turn. Ahead of him was a dwarf in scale armor arguing over a failed escort mission, and behind him, a tall elven woman adjusted the blade on her back. When his turn came, the receptionist looked up with a practiced smile. She was a woman in her late 20s, dressed in a blue guild uniform, blonde hair tied neatly behind her head, and a feather quill in her hand. Even the receptionist here has model-like beauty. Welcome to the Alandra Adventurers Guild, she said. Are you here to post a quest, turn one in, or register? Inigo gave a slight bow. I'd like to register. First-time registrant? She asked. She pulled out a clipboard and placed a form in front of him. You'll need to fill out some basic details, name, age, known skills or magic, any combat experience. It's mostly for internal records. Once approved, you'll receive a guild card and be added to our system. Starting rank is bronze. Wait, I won't have to touch some magical orb to determine my rank or power? Inigo asked, recalling every RPG and anime trope where the hero's stats were revealed in a glowing room with dramatic flair. The receptionist chuckled softly, shaking her head. No, not here. That's only done at some noble-run institutions or specialized mage guilds. The Adventurers Guild doesn't assess based on innate mana or bloodline potential. She tapped the form gently. We rank adventurers based on one thing: results. The quests you complete, the danger you face, the way you handle yourself in the field. That's what matters here. Plenty of successful adventurers don't have an ounce of mana in them. Fighters, rogues, hunters. Some never cast a single spell their entire careers. Inigo let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. That's good to know. Magic helps, she added, but it's not everything. If you've got skill, guts, and a little luck, you'll rise through the ranks like anyone else. He nodded and began filling out the form she'd handed him. Name Inigo. Age 17. Skills: ranged combat, tactical decision-making, battlefield awareness. Magic: none. He hesitated briefly, then scribbled combat proficiency, non-magical. She glanced at his entries as he handed it back. You mentioned you had some combat experience? I see, that's an advantage. Now for the final step, you will just have to pay for the registration fee, the receptionist said, sliding a small brass tray forward. Standard registration cost is 2 silver coins. This covers your guild ID, administrative processing, and your provisional ranking as a bronze adventurer. Inigo reached into his satchel and pulled out a few of the coins he had been given back in Valebrook. He counted out 2 silver coins and placed them on the tray. Remaining balance: 6 gold coins, 92 silver coins, 187 copper coins. Thank you, the receptionist said as she scooped up the coins. She turned behind her, called for a blank guild card, and began to fill in the details by hand with quick, practiced strokes. A soft hum resonated as she pressed the card into a shallow metal mold and channeled a bit of magic into it, just enough to seal the inscription with a faint shimmer. She then attached a leather cord through a hole at the top and handed it to Inigo. Congratulations, Inigo, she said, her smile widening. You're now officially registered with the Alandra Adventurers Guild. Wear this badge whenever you're taking a quest or interacting with guild personnel. It also serves as your proof of status across most cities and towns affiliated with the Adventurers Network. Inigo accepted the badge with both hands, bowing slightly. Thank you. Now, she continued, pointing to a wide board behind her. That's the job board. Quests are categorized by difficulty and rank. You can take on most jobs within your level, but if you're feeling confident, you can request permission to attempt a higher-tier quest. Just don't get in over your head. He nodded again. Understood. And if you ever need lodging, gear upgrades, or party formation, the guild's facilities cover those too. We also have a cafeteria through those doors to your right, she added, gesturing toward a rowdy dining area where mugs clinked and plates clattered. Good food, cheap drinks, and stories that aren't always exaggerated. Inigo gave a small chuckle. Sounds like a place I'll be seeing a lot of. Most do, she said with a wink. With his new badge hanging from his neck, Inigo stepped aside to let the next registrant through. The leather cord felt light, but the weight of the opportunity now in his hands was unmistakable. He turned to study the bustling interior again. Mercenaries comparing scars, spellcasters idly dueling with flickers of flame and wind magic, and beastkin lounging with their feet kicked up as they debated their latest mission failures. He was officially part of this world now. Not just a visitor, but a player. This was just the beginning. He moved toward the job board, scanning the rows of parchment notices pinned under color-coded tags. Bronze-tier quests were listed in green, mostly simple tasks: herb gathering, pest extermination, lost pet recovery. But a few caught his eye: escort duties, monster subjugation, and even the rare bounty listing. Before he could read further, a voice called out beside him. Inigo turned to see a young man, maybe a year or two older than him, leaning casually against a wooden beam. He wore light leather armor reinforced with metal studs, a short sword at his hip, and a bow slung over one shoulder. His tousled brown hair gave him a roguish air, but his tone was friendly. Yeah, Inigo said, offering a polite nod. Just registered. Nice. Name's Colm, the man said, holding out a hand. Bronze rank like you. Don't let the veterans intimidate you. Half of them were scrubbing latrines or getting stabbed by kobolds a few months ago. Inigo shook his hand. Inigo, good to meet you. Looking for your first quest? Trying to figure out what I can handle. Colm grinned. Advice? Pick one that sounds boring. Easy way to learn how the system works, how the paperwork goes, and how long it takes to get paid. Trust me, you don't want to screw up your first job and get blacklisted. I did a rat hunt in the Eastern Granaries my first week. Smelled awful. Got bit twice. But I got paid. Inigo laughed. Sounds like it built character. That's one way to put it. Or, perhaps we can team up and take subjugation quests together. Is he serious, inviting someone to take on a quest together? And what's more, this is a common red flag in all light novels, anime, manga, and other titles. Why? Because this could be a setup trap to a newbie who knows nothing about how the system works and get robbed at the end. He kept his expression neutral, but inwardly his thoughts were racing. Better to play it safe. Thanks for the offer, Inigo said, offering a polite smile, but I can't take any quests just yet. I just registered and haven't received my official ID. Colm blinked. Oh, right. Yeah, you need that to actually take anything off the board. Yeah, Inigo nodded. And besides, I think I'll start solo. Just wanted to look around for now and see what kind of jobs the guild offers. Colm scratched the back of his neck, looking slightly embarrassed. Fair enough. Probably better to get a feel for things first. Sorry if I came off too eager. I just figured a team up would be less of a headache, you know? No offense taken, Inigo replied calmly. It's a solid suggestion. Maybe next time. Sure thing. I'll be around. Colm gave a short wave and stepped back toward one of the nearby tables where a few other adventurers were eating and chatting. Inigo let out a soft breath. He turned his attention back to the quest board. The parchment postings were a mix of handwritten notices and official stamped forms. Some were practically begging for help. Simple jobs like collecting herbs, cleaning out goblin nests, or escorting traders through nearby forest roads. He tilted his head, studying a few of the bronze-tagged listings more closely. Request: boar culling in Southridge Farm, bronze tier. Wild boars have been trampling crops and attacking livestock. Requesting one or more adventurers to help drive them off or kill them. Reward: 5 silver coins per confirmed kill. Bring tusks as proof. Request: lost heirloom, bronze tier. A merchant lost a silver ring near the riverside while unloading goods. Believed to be in the shallow waters. Reward: 3 silver coins upon return. Request: goblin tracks spotted, bronze tier. A hunter found tracks near the border trail. Guild requests a scout or fighter to confirm presence and eliminate if possible. Reward: 8 silver coins plus hazard bonus if den is discovered. Nothing he couldn't handle. He stepped back, arms crossed. Once he got that ID, he'd pick one of these and try it solo. He needed to test his gear in the field again, calibrate his weapon responses in a live scenario. And honestly, he needed to see how this world fought. What was the standard? How strong were these monsters, really? One thing was certain. He wasn't about to charge into the deep end without knowing how deep it was. A soft chime echoed from above the counter. The receptionist from earlier had just called out someone else's name. Inigo glanced at the clock-like device mounted near the entrance. He still had about 30 minutes left before he needed to return to the guard station to receive his temporary ID. Enough time to grab a drink and observe a little more of the adventurer crowd. He turned away from the job board and headed toward the cafeteria. The clatter of wooden mugs, the sizzling of food, and the buzz of half-drunken stories made it feel like something between a pub and a community hall. It smelled strongly of grilled meat and bread. Honestly, not a bad mix. He ordered a simple meat skewer and a glass of cold spring water, paid with a single copper coin, and found a seat near a window that overlooked the main street. Adventurers came and went. Some were rugged and older, others young and barely past their teens. Mages in cloaks, warriors in dented armor, even a few beastkin with tails twitching behind their stools. It was a lively place, filled with people chasing gold glory, or maybe just survival. Inigo bit into the skewer. Crunchy on the outside, juicy on the inside. Inigo finished the last bite of his skewer, wiped his fingers with the cloth napkin provided, then glanced at the guild's bustling main hall one more time. He had some time left before he had to return to the guard post, and something had been gnawing at the back of his mind. He still didn't know if he had any. He had fired guns, summoned armor, bought gear through a system that didn't rely on mana. But what if there was something hidden? A dormant trait? A magical spark the system wasn't built to detect? It was worth looking into. He stood up from his seat and made his way back toward the reception counter. Luckily, the same receptionist from earlier was still there, handling a few forms. Her blonde hair caught the sunlight streaming in through a stained glass panel behind her. When she looked up and met his eyes, her smile returned, polite and professional. "Back so soon?" she asked, resting her quill in its inkwell. "Do you already want to pick a quest?" Inigo shook his head. "Not yet. I actually had a question." He hesitated briefly. "Is there a place in the city where I can get my magic assessed? Like, to check if I even have any?" The receptionist's brow lifted slightly, as if surprised, but not unkindly. "Well, most people go to the Royal Academy of Magical Sciences to have that tested. The entrance exam includes a basic mana aptitude assessment. That's how many young nobles and magic-capable civilians find out." Inigo frowned a little. "I don't plan on enrolling. Not yet anyway. I was hoping for a place I could visit, just to get tested." She tapped her chin with a gloved finger. In that case, your best bet would be the Imperial Mage Department. It's a government-run institution. They handle magical regulations, artifact certification, and yes, mana assessments for independent individuals. "Perfect," Inigo said. "Where can I find it?" "Head north from the Adventurers Guild, toward the administrative quarter. It's one of the tallest buildings there, White stone, 2 towers with silver-tipped spires. You won't miss it. He gave her a respectful nod. Thank you. I'll check it out. She smiled. Good luck. With that, Inigo stepped out of the guild and made his way along the route she described. The administrative quarter of Alandra had a different feel compared to the market roads and plazas he had passed earlier. It was quieter, with fewer stalls and more government buildings flanked by patrols in polished armor. The stonework here was more ornate, less utilitarian, more ceremonial. Statues lined the road, great mages, royal guards, past monarchs with hands raised in stone benediction. And sure enough, he spotted it. The Imperial Mage Department building stood like a fortress dedicated to intellect. Smooth white walls glistened under the sun, 2 towers rising above the neighboring buildings, each capped in silver dome-like spires. Between them was a massive archway with an emblem carved into its face, an open eye over a starburst wand. Inigo approached the main gate, where 2 guards stood at attention. Both wore deep blue tabards over chainmail, and each carried a polearm tipped with a glowing blue crystal. He slowed his steps and stopped a respectful distance away. I'd like to inquire about a mana assessment, he said. One of the guards looked him over. Your name? Personal assessment. I just want to see if I have any magical aptitude. The guard gave a small nod, then raised a hand to stop him. Do you have identification? Inigo hesitated. Not yet. The guard's expression remained neutral, but his tone grew firm. I'm afraid no one may enter the department grounds without valid identification. It's regulation. Inigo sighed internally. Of course. Understood, he said, stepping back. You may return once you have proper documentation, the other guard added. As he turned and walked away, he didn't feel too disappointed. He had expected some kind of formality. Still, the fact that he now knew where to go was already a step forward. Besides, once he had his ID, nothing would stop him from confirming what he was capable of. After leaving the Imperial Mage Department, Inigo made his way back toward the inner city gates, heading straight for the guard post where he'd first been processed. His footsteps were brisk but relaxed. His earlier disappointment had faded into anticipation. He'd done all the right steps. Now all that remained was the formality. Inside the guard post, the same receptionist soldier greeted him, already holding a bundle of sealed forms and a leather cord looped through a metal-tagged card. Inigo, correct? The guard asked. The man passed him the card, a stamped leather badge with his name, status, and visitor, engraved in fine script beside the insignia of the capital. This is your temporary identification, the guard said. Keep it on you at all times. If you're stopped by a patrol or enter any restricted zone without it, you'll be detained. Understood, Inigo said, slipping the badge over his head and letting it rest on his chest. One more thing, the guard added. An investigation unit was dispatched to the Southmore ambush site this morning. Given your testimony and the fact you're one of the only surviving witnesses, expect a summons in the future. You'll be contacted through the Adventurers Guild if needed. Inigo nodded. I'll cooperate when that time comes. The guard gave a short nod and returned to his work, already calling the next name. With his ID finally in hand, Inigo turned on his heel and stepped back out into the sunlight, slipping through the crowd toward the northern sector once more. This time, no guard stopped him when he approached the Imperial Mage Department. One glance at the leather badge was enough for them to gesture him through the front gate. Proceed to the front desk just beyond the atrium, one of them said. Ask for a preliminary mana assessment. Inside, the contrast from the noisy streets of Alandra was immediate. The air was cooler, laced with the faint scent of parchment and ink. Marble floors stretched in sweeping arcs beneath an intricate mosaic dome that depicted various mythical beasts and swirling magical elements. Runes pulsed faintly across the high stone pillars like veins of light. This wasn't a military fortress or dusty old library. It was a cathedral of knowledge. A young mage in training, likely no older than 20, greeted him at a circular desk near the atrium's center. Mana assessment? She asked, seeing the look on his face. Inigo nodded. Yes. I'd like to know if I have magical aptitude. I've never been tested. Identification, she prompted. She checked it, nodded, then gestured to a hallway behind her. Follow the left corridor and head to testing chamber 3. Someone will meet you there. Inigo made his way as instructed. The hallways were lined with glowing glyphs and old paintings of legendary casters. Mages locked in battle with dragons, priests healing broken armies, enchanters infusing weapons with spells of fire and frost. It was starting to feel less like a test and more like a secret initiation. Inside chamber 3, a circular room waited. Simple stone floors. A glass sphere on a pedestal at the center. A single-robed man in his 40s stood at the side, flipping through a thick tome until he noticed Inigo. You're the one who wants to get tested? The man nodded. I'm Arlen, Mage Division Examiner, 4th Circle. We'll start with a basic resonance scan. He gestured to the pedestal. Place both hands on the sphere and close your eyes. Focus inward. If you have any mana, the crystal will pulse in color. It'll also help us determine elemental alignment, if any. Inigo stepped forward and placed his hands on the cool glass surface. He closed his eyes. At first, nothing happened. Just silence and his own breathing. The sphere began to glow faintly. Soft white at first. Then a ripple of blue. Then violet. Then nothing. No flame. No green. No red or yellow streaks. Arlen stepped closer, squinting at the sphere. Curious, he murmured. What is it? Inigo asked. You do have mana, Arlen said, but no elemental affinity. The examiner shook his head. No fire, water, air, or earth. No lightning. No ice. You're not attuned to the primal forces, which is rare, but not unheard of. So, what kind of magic do I have? You have access to what we call augmentation magic, Arlen explained. Supportive in nature. Enhancement-based. You might not throw fireballs, but you can boost your physical traits. Speed. Reflexes. Even imbue objects with temporary magical properties. Inigo's thoughts raced. Wait, enhance objects? Does that mean I can enchant weapons? He asked. To a degree, Arlen said, nodding. With enough control and focus, yes. The enchantments won't be permanent, but they'll last long enough to matter in a fight. Like coating bullets in energy. Empowering his rifle with piercing capabilities. Or infusing his knife to cut through magical barriers. The possibilities suddenly exploded in his head. What about creatures that aren't physical? Inigo asked. Ghosts. Spirits. Stuff like that. Ordinary weapons wouldn't touch them, Arlen said. But if you imbue your weapon with mana, yes, you could harm incorporeal beings. Even if his system gave him the power of modern warfare, it wouldn't help against beings immune to the physical. But now, he had a countermeasure. His system gave him the bullets. His magic would give them bite. I'll need training, Inigo said aloud. Where can I learn to control it? You can return here for supervised lessons or attend workshops at the Adventurers Guild. Just show your ID at either location and request mana enhancement training. We'll schedule sessions based on your availability. Arlen stepped forward and handed him a scroll. This confirms your mana category. Enhancement type, non-elemental. You may need it when applying for advanced licenses or registering for special quests. Inigo accepted the scroll. Thank you, sir. The examiner offered a rare smile. Support mages are overlooked. But in the right hands, they're more dangerous than fire or lightning. The sun was already starting its descent when Inigo returned to the Adventurers Guild, his new leather identification badge swinging gently against his chest. The crowd had thinned a little, but the hall was still alive with the usual din. Laughing adventurers, clattering mugs, and the low thrum of chatter that never truly faded. He made his way straight to the front desk, where the same receptionist from earlier sat poised with her feather quill, scribbling onto a parchment with practiced precision. Her blonde hair was neatly tied back as always, not a strand out of place beneath the dim golden light of the wall sconces. She wore that same professional half-smile, and when she looked up to see him, the warmth in her expression deepened. Back again, Mr. Inigo? She asked, setting her quill aside. Inigo gave a small nod, holding up his ID. I've got it now. She accepted it gracefully, examined the details, then handed it back with a nod of approval. Everything checks out. Welcome to official status. Thanks, he said, then leaned slightly closer to the counter, lowering his voice. I'd like to take on a quest. Of course, she replied, already reaching for a registry logbook. Do you have one in mind? I saw one earlier, Inigo said. Goblin extermination. C rank. Cave subjugation. She flipped through the log until she found the listing, eyes narrowing slightly as she reviewed the quest description. Yes, it's still active. South of the city, about half a day's ride into the foothills. Estimated goblin numbers, 15 to 20. Possibly a chieftain. Cave structure. Ambush risk high. She looked back at him, more serious now. I should inform you that this is a C-rank subjugation quest. Most adventurers don't attempt it alone. I can handle it, Inigo said, calmly but firmly. Her eyes lingered on him, studying his face. You understand that if you accept this and die in the process, the guild holds no responsibility. No rescue teams. No bounty payout if your corpse goes missing. Are you sure? A moment of silence passed between them. Then she sighed, reached for a stamp, and began processing the quest form. Very well. Standard reward is 15 silver coins, with an additional 5 for eliminating the chieftain if confirmed. Tusk and ear collection required as proof. She handed him the assignment sheet. Inigo accepted it and slipped it into his satchel, then hesitated a moment before smiling faintly. Hey, I've been coming to this counter a lot, but I never got your name. She blinked, a little surprised, but smiled. Elise. Elise, he repeated. That's a nice name. Thank you, she replied, a hint of a blush rising in her cheeks despite her composed demeanor. He tilted his head, lips curling into a teasing smirk. So tell me, Elise, hypothetically, if I come back from this quest alive, coins in hand, would 15 silver be enough to cover dinner with a beautiful receptionist? That caught her off guard. She blinked again, then gave a small laugh. Flattery, huh? I see the adventurer's confidence kicked in. I'm just asking a question, he said, holding his hands up playfully. Purely academic. Elise leaned forward slightly, resting her arms on the counter, eyes half-lidded with mock scrutiny. Survive the Goblin Cave. Come back in one piece. Then maybe I'll consider your proposal. Inigo gave a mock salute. Then I guess I've got all the motivation I need. Good luck, Inigo, she said, amusement still in her voice. Try not to die. It'd be such a waste. He turned with a small grin and made his way out of the guild hall, the form tucked securely in his satchel and the image of her amused smile lingering in his mind. Equip, combat uniform, active mode. Equip, M4A1 rifle, standard loadout. Equip, sidearm, Desert Eagle. Equip, tactical visor, enhanced threat detection mode. The digital shimmer of his gear replaced his civilian clothes in seconds. Black body armor snugly fit against his frame. Pouches autofilled. His HUD recalibrated for field mode. He took a slow breath and activated the GPS overlay, plotting a route toward the quest site. The path glowed faintly on the map, just southeast of the city, past the farmlands and into the forest foothills. With one last glance back at the towering spires of Alandra, Inigo muttered to himself. Time to earn my keep. He set off, boots crunching against the cobbled road, already half lost in mission focus. But deep in the back of his mind, he couldn't help but replay that smile. He'd definitely survive this. And maybe, just maybe, have dinner waiting on the other side. The journey southeast of Alandra took longer than expected. The cobbled roads soon gave way to packed dirt trails, and from there, to the uneven paths of the countryside, rutted wagon grooves, the occasional wheel-busted cart abandoned off to the side, and the tall shadows of trees crowding the horizon. Farmers on horseback passed him by, offering cautious glances at the armored figure marching alone with purpose. Even they could feel it. Inigo wasn't just some traveler out for a walk. The foothills began to rise slowly, wrapping the forest in undulating slopes. Trees thickened. The air grew cooler. He slowed his pace, eyes scanning the terrain. The forest here was dense and quiet, too quiet. Not even the wind stirred the leaves. Inigo moved off the trail, stepping between moss-covered trunks and ducking beneath twisted branches until he reached a shallow ridge. Inigo crouched behind a moss-covered boulder, eyes fixed on the gaping dark mouth of the cave. It sat like a beast, open and waiting, the stone edges jagged like broken teeth. The surrounding trees leaned inward, as if recoiling from the foul aura wafting from its depths. A faint stench carried on the still air, rot, sweat, and old blood. He tapped his fingers lightly on his knee, weighing the risk. Too dark in there, he muttered. Need to see before I shoot. He opened his system. Open, military shop tab. Category, optics and gear, tactical accessories. He scrolled quickly through the list of available equipment, flashlights, helmet mounts, laser sights, until he found what he needed. Night vision goggles, Gen 3 plus military grade. Description, tactical grade NVGs with built-in IR illumination. Detects thermal variation and ambient light for full spectrum visibility in pitch-black environments. Night vision goggles added to inventory. He pulled them out from his inventory with a flick of the wrist. The goggles materialized with a soft, digital hum, matte black with padded straps, dual-lens optics, and a lightweight mount bracket that snapped snugly over his head. He adjusted the strap until it fit firm over his brow, then flicked the switch on the side. A pale green hue enveloped his vision. The darkness ahead surrendered immediately. Details sharpened. The outline of damp rocks, faint muddy tracks leading inward, and even the faint heat signatures of rats skittering along the walls. Not a single torch burned inside, which meant the goblins liked it dark. Too bad for them, Inigo muttered. Satisfied, he rose to a low crouch and began his approach. Step by step, his boots pressed silently into the damp soil. He reached the cave's mouth and stopped just before crossing the threshold. A last breath, slow and steady. Then he slipped inside. The temperature dropped immediately. Moisture clung to the stone walls and ceiling, every step echoing faintly despite his caution. With his night vision active, the path unfolded before him, narrow at first, then opening into a slightly wider tunnel. He moved carefully, rifle raised, muzzle tracking every shadow. The silence was deceiving. Goblins weren't known for discipline or stillness. If this was their home, they had to be nearby, which meant they were waiting. He spotted movement ahead, small, fast, ducking behind a jutting stone. He paused, lowered his stance, and watched. More heat signatures bloomed into view, small bodies, hunched and twitching, barely the height of his waist. 4 of them. one armed with a rusted sword, another with a short spear. Crude, mismatched armor clung to their green bodies like old meat on bones. They were waiting in ambush. "I see you," Inigo whispered. He didn't fire immediately. Instead, he checked the angles, walls, ceiling height, potential ricochet. Then he raised his rifle and squeezed the trigger. Two goblins dropped before the others could react. One took a round through the throat, collapsing with a wet gurgle. The other fell backward, its crude shield useless against a high-velocity round. The remaining two screamed. One charged, the other turned to flee. Thwip! The runner crumpled before it could round the corner. The last one came straight at him, spear poised like a lunging dog. Inigo sidestepped, caught the shaft with one hand, and buried his combat knife into the goblin's neck. It spasmed once, then went limp. He yanked the blade free, wiped it clean on the creature's ragged tunic, and stood still for a moment, listening. He glanced toward a side tunnel that curved off to the left. Tracks were denser there. Blood trails. Fresh droppings. Scratches along the walls. That had to be where the main nest was. The deeper he went, the worse the air became, hotter, fouler, laced with the coppery stink of meat and goblin musk. The tunnel widened into a larger chamber, maybe 15 meters across. Crude nests made of bones and animal skins lined the edges. A rotted carcass, possibly a goat, hung from a crude rack, flies dancing over it. 16 goblins scattered throughout the chamber. And one larger shape seated on what looked like a pile of looted furniture. Bigger, broader, wearing the skull of some beast as a makeshift helm. Inigo pulled back into the shadows. Open, inventory tactical options. Equip, flashbang left hand. He pulled the pin, leaned around the bend, and hurled the grenade high into the chamber. A burst of white light and sound shattered the darkness. He charged in before the echoes faded. His M4A1 roared in short bursts, each shot clean and precise. Goblins screamed, blinded and deafened, flailing wildly. Thwip, 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 thwip. They dropped one by one, through the chest, the throat, the skull. One tried to crawl away. He ended it with a double tap to the back. Another threw a rock in desperation. Useless. He pivoted, took aim, and dropped it. Only one figure remained standing. The brute snarled, swinging a jagged iron cleaver and charging like a bull. Its face contorted in fury beneath the beast's skull. He dropped his rifle to his sling, drew the Desert Eagle, and fired. The round struck center mass. The chieftain staggered. He fired again, this time to the head. The beast's skull cracked, and the body crumpled. Inigo exhaled, smoke curling from the barrel of the pistol. The chamber was littered with bodies. Steam rose from fresh kills. His breath was calm, but his pulse thundered with adrenaline. Quest update, Goblin subjugation complete. Total eliminated, 17 chieftain confirmed. Token balance, 1583. Inigo moved quickly, collecting ears and tusks from each goblin. It was brutal work, but necessary. Proof of the kill. Proof of survival. When he finished, he stood at the center of the bloodied nest, breath slow and even, the green glow of his goggles flickering against the carnage. This is easier than I expected. But he noticed that there was another entrance, leading to a deeper part of the cave. It wasn't stated in the quest that there was that part in this place, but whatever lies deeper in it must mean there could be more. After all, the goblins that he had encountered so far are too few. I'll try and explore it.